Hey guys, I think it's a good time to create a tier list for Chaos Zero Nightmare, so that we have a grasp on how good every single character actually performs in just one picture. So let's go right ahead and create this set tier list. Starting off with the character Veronica. She is pretty flexible. You can play her in any single team that you want. No matter what characters you play, she can always be your sub DPS. She has her core mechanic with the ballistas always guaranteed in her starting hand, so she does not deal an incredible amount of damage, and there is even a character in this game with Hugo that completely outclasses Veronica in every single thing that she does. So she cannot be S tier, she cannot even be A tier, right? And character that is already power grabbed is mediocre at best. And that is what Veronica is. Her flexibility and the fact you can pair her with any support, with any main DPS, nets her the B tier, but she's very close to fall into the C tier. Okay. Then we have to talk about Armia. Now there is a general thing in this game when we talk about archetypes, then this mechanic of dealing defense based damage is not crushing it in this game, to say it the least. And Armia is one of the worst characters in the game, and she will be F tier. Like stacking this metallization to then perform follow-up attacks whenever you get a shield, and her damage, by the way, is also very low. Even if you stack up a lot of metallization, even if you provide your team with a lot of shields to perform these follow-up and counter attacks and whatnot, her damage is still very low, no matter how hard you will ever try to make Armia work. She will always be one of the worst characters in the game. So the perfect place for her is obviously the F tier. Next up we have Mika on our list. Mika is one of the most broken characters in this game. She is by far the best support. She provides you with pretty more heal than anyone else. She gives you AP, which is a completely unique mechanic only catered towards her, and that is one of the most important and busted abilities in the game. She does that for 0 AP, she heals, she does everything on her own. She's the perfect support in this game, pretty much. That leads us to another character that has to join the conversation here, and that is Cassius. That is another S tier character because of the consistency that he provides to every single team in this game. Every team loves him, other than Mika, right? Mika is not the best in slot for every single team in the game. She's always good with this AP1, but there are characters that we will talk about later that are very AP friendly and don't necessarily need Mika. She wouldn't do much for some teams, right? Cassius is different in this aspect because every single character in this game, every single team profits from this card draw and the recovery from the graveyard and the ability to search out cards, specific cards, the exact cards that you want at any given time from your deck is absolutely incredible. And he even provides some damage to your team. He has an ability that can absolutely hit like a truck for 0 AP if you have 2 quests completed. So insane. Best card draw in the game, recovery from the graveyard, search engine from your deck. It's absolutely incredible there. And that's why this character of course has to be in the S tier. And then moving on to the character Marbel. Here's where things get a little bit more interesting. Let me just put her in S, just not where she belongs, but let me explain myself before I actually rank Marbel. Now, let's take a look at her character real quick. Here we have her. So, she is in this tragedy, which is called defense-based damage and the whole counter-attack mechanic. We already had that story with Armia, right? Now, you have to always ask yourself a very important question when you look at a character. And that question is, why would you play a character in your team? Why would you ever play Veronica in your team? Because she deals damage at the end of the turn for 0 AP every time. You don't have to actively play her. She will get her job done. She will do stuff without using up any AP. That's why, you know what I mean? Why would you play Cassius in your team? For the insane amount of consistency with card draw and search engine. Why would you ever play Mika in your team? For the unique ability of AP plus and for healing capabilities, right? And now look at Armia. Why would you ever play Armia in your team? Right. There is absolutely no reason whatsoever. To stack up metallization? Absolute joke. She is reliant on having other characters providing her with shields, so she can then perform a low damage counterattack, right? Armia is just rock bottom, right? And now answer this question for Marbel. Why would you ever play Marbel in your team? And if you look at her kit, you can find an answer. And that is this one right here for 2 AP, Shelter Hold. That is the biggest amount of shield appliance that you can find in the entire game. No other character provides you with as much shield as Marbel would. Now, of course, that is not something that like is very impressive or like especially good or anything like that, but at least you can find an answer, right? If you ask yourself why you would play Marbel, you have at least somewhat of an answer there. The shield. But for Armia, you don't have that answer. And that is the only reason why I put Marbel above Armia into the D tier, because she can answer this very important question. She doesn't have the best answer, but she has one answer. And here you go. Okay, then moving on to the character Selena. Now I will just, spoiler alert, put her straight up into the C tier. Now she also acts as a sub DPS, and let me look up her kit here, let me bring up her kit, and then you will see that she can also answer the question of why would I ever play this character in one of my teams. And the answer is that she applies marks, and these marks lead to you saying when using attack cards 100% extra attack, tenacity damage by 0 cost, reduce mark, right? So this mark increases the damage output from your main DPS. Additionally, she, as you can see here, every single of her abilities, they cost 0 or up to 1 AP. So she is pretty AP friendly here as well, which is very important for a sub DPS. Now if you look at her damage numbers though, they are very low. All she really does is she applies mark, and she has some gimmicks here like applying a passion weakness, having a little bit of like shielding and tenacity damage, right? Nothing to ever mention. Then she has a very good ability here on the surface called Sniper's Domain, which increases the mark damage by a further 40%. That is really good. The problem with this card is though it doesn't have a Epiphany upgrade, and it doesn't have the ability to guarantee you this card in your starting hand. So if you draw this card late, you will never get the value out of this. And so what does this all boil down to? It is absolute mediocreness, right? She's a sub DPS and she is worse than Veronica. Veronica has her ballista upgrade in her starting hand guaranteed. She will always get her job done for 0 AP. Now Selena doesn't get it. She will always use this 1 AP, and 2 marks for this 1 AP is not gonna like change the world or anything. And then her, yeah, we talked about this now, her signature thing that would make her great is not guaranteed in her starting hand, while for Veronica it is. And that's why I have to put Selena a tier below Veronica for sure. She's just a worse sub DPS, right? She's of course still better than the characters that work around like shielding and defense based damage. So it's at least something. Then next up we have the character Beryl. Now let me put her in A, let me pull up her kit, and let's talk about her a little bit. She is the same thing as Armia. You will never find an answer, right? Answer yourself this question. Ask yourself this. Why would you play Beryl in your team? Even you can like even ask yourself another question. What would be the role that Beryl would fill in your team? Is this a main DPS? Absolutely not. Her damage numbers and her AP costs are way too low. Way too high. I mean, damage is too low, AP numbers are too high. You will see later that if you play her as a main DPS, she is incredibly hardcore outclassed by a lot of other characters there. Then sub DPS, no, it can't be, because she is too expensive. The AP costs for all of her things are too high to consider her a sub DPS. And then what? Support? All she would provide to you is a little bit of card draw. We have already talked about Cassius, who provides better card draw, and there is another character in this game that also provides better card draw than Beryl would. So again, why would you play Beryl in your team? There is no reason to ever do that. You will find better supports, you will find better main DPSs, and she doesn't function as a sub DPS either. And you know how this did go with Armia, right? If you can't answer me the question as to why I would play you in my team, then you are an F tier. It is really as simple as that. Alright, next up we have Haru. And yeah, that is, I mean, everyone knows that by now. Haru is one of, if not even the best main DPS character in the entire game. Now it is very close. You will see what other main DPS characters I will put into the S tier. And yeah, then you probably know this by now. If you watch my videos, then you already know which other characters I will put up there. But yeah, see, this is as simple as it gets. Like the damages, like Haru's damage output is like pretty much unmatched. She is even a character that sustains herself. Everything that she needs, she does it herself. Wait a minute, let me pull her up and show you this one more time. Here, she's all about the ability Anchor Shot. That is her main damage ability. So you would need to find this, right? You would need something to consistently find this Anchor Shot so that you can actually use this. Because again, you want to use this as much as possible, not only because this is your main damage ability, but the more you use it, the stronger this becomes. And Haru herself has for 0 AP the ability to either get this Anchor Shot from the drop pile or even recover it from the graveyard for free. This is absolutely insane, right? But it doesn't stop here. Again, for 0 AP, you can increase this damage output by 70% for free. And once you draw this card, it remains in your hand. It retains itself, right? Here, it does not get discarded at the end of the turn. So another layer of just incredible consistency. Then she has Anchor Shot, by the way, is an attack that targets one target. But if you need AoE damage, Haru got you covered, bro. She has Power Charge here, 180 damage to all enemies. And this increases even if it's single target damage, right? She can increase the damage for this attack by 30% by herself, right? This is one of the best characters like in the game. If you want a main DPS, Haru is one of your best choices, easily. Okay. Then we have Hugo. Hugo is the better version of Veronica. Therefore, he has to be a tier higher than Veronica, as he does exactly what Veronica does, but way better. See, Veronica has a follow-up attack at the end of every single turn for free, right? But Hugo stacks something called hand commands. You can gain up to 5 stacks, and you can trigger his follow-up attack through this hand commands by using a targeting attack. And then he will perform a follow-up attack. The point is, you can perform multiple follow-up attacks with Hugo, while you could only perform one with Veronica. That makes Hugo a better character than Veronica. Very slottable, can be played together with every single main DPS in the game, profits from every single good support in this game, be it Cassius, be it Mika, or a character that we will talk about later. It doesn't matter, he has the same flexibility as a Veronica, but it's just overall a better version of Veronica, and therefore he has to be in our A tier. Then next up we have the character Luke, who, at least from what I gather, right, the community is very split on this guy. Either people love him and think he's really good, or people hate him and they think he's trash. And let me give you the answer. He's trash. And there's a very simple reason for this. Again, first of all, let's clear the question up. Why would we play Luke in our team, right? The answer is obviously damage output. He can be played as a main or as a sub DPS. And there are huge problems with this guy. Let me show you them. It's actually very glaringly obvious and very simple. His damage numbers are too low. 50% damage twice, bro? What? Or here, 100, no damage at all, but 120% damage increase for the next bullet card. Nothing too impressive either. Here, damage card, 50% again, dude. It's not enough. And even the mechanic of him generating these handgun bullets, right? Here, create handgun bullets. For every time you crit, create handgun bullets. If you now look at these handgun bullets, they are pathetic. 30% damage, bro. Here again, we have 50% damage. We have 50% damage, right? This one is the best with 70%. It is not enough at all, right? And now you can make the argument. It's like some people try to come up with the argument, or he has actually a pretty good amount and very high amount of crit chance. So once you unlock the skill tree nodes here that increases critical crit chance and his critical damage output, he will actually come online and become a very viable and much better character. But no, that is absolutely not true. Why not? Because the crit you see for other characters, crit chance is a bonus, is something that elevates characters to a whole new level. That is not the case for Luke though, because Luke, his damage numbers are pathetic. He needs to crit. He is reliant on critting in the first place to somewhat keep up with the numbers. It's just trash, right? He's a complete gamble, and even if you win the gamble, it is not impressive either. He still doesn't deal enough damage. And so no matter what you do with Luke, even if you like equip him, right, with all of these crit cards, crit sets, you get the notes from the potential, you give him the memory fragments, he will still not deal enough damage compared to a lot of other DPS characters in this game. And that's why he is in our D tier, no question about it. Then next up we have another bullet character here, which is Lucas. Now, yeah, the defense-based damage isn't crushing it, and isn't really crushing it in this game. Same for the bullet archetype. These archetypes are not crushing it, and I will put this guy straight into the F tier. You might ask yourself, hey, why? I agree, he is quite fun to play, and he can dish out, yeah, decent damage, but he's outclassed in that regard by way too many other characters. And again, if you ask yourself this question of why would you play this guy in your team, the only answer here can be damage output. And same as with Luke, his damage doesn't hold up. He is even more expensive when it comes to AP. His main attack costs 2 AP, hits all enemies for 180. That is not enough, bro. Others hit all enemies for 240, right? I mean, it leaves me a little bit speechless. I don't even really know what to say, right? And they are AP, he's not AP friendly as well, because his bullets, they actually cost AP. Yeah, they deal 100 damage compared to 50 damage, but they cost 1 AP. You know what I mean? So if you play this guy, you would want to use up all of your AP with this guy, and then like play him yourself and play some other DPS characters, and you will see that so many other DPS characters in this game will just deal more damage. So there's no reason to like ever play this guy, right? He's even worse than Luke because he cannot be played as a sub DPS because he is not AP friendly enough for that. Luke, yeah, you can make like somewhat of an argument of at least he is AP friendly, he can like spam out these bullets, you know, they exhaust themselves, that helps a character like Karin and stuff. You can come up with some shit there, but for Lucas, all hope is lost, excuse me. Alright, then next up we have Owen, and yeah, this is the character that screams the most mediocre from all characters in this game to me, so I have to put him in D. Like, he like does multiple different things, right? He can apply vulnerable, he does some damage and shield your team a little bit. He has one of the better basic attacks in this game, actually. He supports himself with multi-hits, he has single target damage and AoE damage actually, and yeah, if you get some epiphany upgrades for him, he has quite nice epiphany upgrades there. But yeah, all in all, he takes up too much HP here. Wind Slash, Gale Strike. He really wants to combo his basic attacks together with this Wind Charge, which then would equal to 2 AP as well. He has a very useless ability with this Wind Riding here, shields and moves Wind Charge into your head. And then you would use this Wind Charge into a basic attack. You know what I mean? It's just all not that great, honestly. It's not truly like complete unplayable dog shit or something. You can play him as a main DPS, you can play him as a sub DPS even if you want, but I mean, yeah, as I said, it's very, very mediocre. I would say Luke is even a little bit of a better character, but I could not justify putting him a tier higher than Luke. Maybe if you would want to put him in C, or you would want to put Luke in C so he's above Owen, that would be totally fine. I will keep them both in the same tier actually, because I think they just don't hold up with anything. But again, the characters in the F tier cannot answer why you would play them into your team, while these characters in D, they can make some arguments here. Then we have Renoa, who is also quite an interesting topic to talk about. Now she is self-sustainable. She doesn't need, so the deal with her is, right, she does everything on her own. She doesn't need anyone, just like Haru, to help her out with her things. The difference between Haru and Renoa is, of course, like flat damage output. Haru just deals more damage than Renoa would be, even if we only talk about single target damage. And the problem is that the way Haru performs, she has characters like Mika, for example, like Cassius, and other characters even. Haru has a lot of synergies going. Renoa does not have that at all. Renoa makes the game, like the team, like just all about herself. The other two, they don't exist. They just stand there with her basically, but they don't really support her in any way, shape or form. So again, team building is very, very important in this game already, and it will become even more and more and more important the more and more characters will be released. And so Renoa will fall off faster. And I mean, yeah, she can answer the question of why would you play her in a team. The reason is the single target damage is extremely high, right? Problem is, not only Haru, but some other characters that we're gonna talk about later outclass her, even in this single target damage thing that she does. And again, she doesn't really have synergy with any other characters, and that's why I have to put her in C. Then next up we have the character May Lin, and yeah, she is even better, a little bit better than Renoa in the single target damage department. She is very, very AP friendly, and she has synergies going with multiple different characters, but is also self-sustainable. Now she has this very cool combo here. Look at her Flame Dragon's Wheel. She's guaranteed to have that in her starting hand. That increases the attack card damage, and when using an attack card, Passion Weakness is applied to the target. And she can do this because for just 0 AP, you draw 2 basic cards that out of your deck, and these cards will be reduced by 1 cost. Now if you look at her basic cards, she has Strike 2 times. That is an attack card, right? Damage is increased, Passion Weakness is applied, and you can play this for 0 AP thanks to the Unity of Attack and Defense. Also, with Unity of Attack and Defense, you will find this Flame Dragon Guardian, which gives you shields. That is on the surface quite bad, but it's actually quite good because this is a skill card. And here is where you activate some cool synergies. Let me just give you one example with Hugo. Whenever an ally of him activates an upgrade or a skill card, he gains a stack of Commence the Hunt. So how this would go is that you play Unity of Attack and Defense. You search out these basic cards, attack cards here, and this skill card. You can play those for free. So for all of this is happening for 0 AP. You use Unity of Attack and Defense. You search out the Flame Dragon Guardian with it. You use it. That gives Hugo a stack of Commence the Hunt. Then you will follow up with a Strike. That is an attack card which targets one enemy, and that leads Hugo to follow up with a follow-up attack, and this will become a constant cycle between these two. And additionally, while the damage output might seem quite low here, her numbers are quite low in fact, but she has this combo mechanic here which applies more hits, and she also applies Ember, which increases the damage output from everything again, right? So what you do is you play skill cards which give Hugo stacks of commands to hand. You will hit multiple times with targeting abilities, which will lead to Hugo following up. In the process, you apply Ember, and that will lead to all of you dealing more damage altogether, right? There we go. That is pretty nice when it comes to synergy, and that makes your damage output much better, and therefore she is a better character in my opinion than Renoa would be. Then we're moving on to the character Nia, who is either S or A depending on how you look at it. Since Mika and Cassius exist, I will put Nia into the A tier. Now Nia is something like, she is a mix of Mika and Cassius. She is the best character in the game when it comes to providing both heal and card draw at the same time. That makes her very viable, and even best in slot for some teams, because if you play a team with, like, let's say Ren and Ray, those are characters that dish out a lot of damage and are very AP friendly. So therefore you wouldn't really need the AP plus that Mika would provide. So then Nia doesn't provide you with that 1 AP, but she draws you cards instead while maintaining the healing, you know. See, Cassius has the best card draw but sucks at healing, right? And Nia provides no card draw, but she heals and provides AP. But if the team doesn't need the AP, then Nia comes in and provides heal and card draw, right? So a super good and viable character in this game. Overall, since we talk about the like support healer slot here, just Cassius and Mika are more viable, more flexible than Nia would be. Nia is a little bit niche because you see, this is the case every single time with every character in every video game. You have to focus on one thing that is quite like unique, and you have to be the best character in the game when it comes to this specific thing. See, Mika does it with plus AP. No other character in this game provides plus AP. She's the best character in the game for providing AP. That already, like, that is the reason that makes her so incredibly viable, right? If your team needs card draw, you always prefer Cassius over anything else, right? When would you prefer Nia over everyone else? Yeah, this niche exists, right? But it is a niche. Most of the times you go for Mika and Cassius over Nia. And that's the reason why I personally would put her a rank below these two. If you would want to put her in S, that is perfectly reasonable and I wouldn't blame you. For me, for the reasons mentioned, she will belong to the A tier. Okay, and now talking about the character Karin, he is obviously, no one should be surprised, one of the best main DPS characters in the game. That is one of the characters that actually challenges Haru for the best main DPS character slot in the entire game. And he has beautiful synergy because his main ability, his main skill that deals the most amount of damage, at least when we talk about AoE damage. He also has very strong single target damage with his black hole, right? Because here damage per exhausted futility is increased by 40%. That stacks up like a truck. And he has another very good basic ability, like one target attack ability with a cure of fertility. But the point here is this one. Of course, it has an epiphany that increases the damage even more. And you can see that every single card that gets exhausted this turn, it reduces the cost of this card by 1. So you can always play this, if you do it right, for 0 AP. And the damage output for 0 AP here for this card is absolutely ridiculous, right? Now you need characters though that exhaust these cards. You create them yourself with this futility, right? You can create them and exhaust them, sure. But here's where the synergy comes online, because other characters like Tresa, for example, like Luke that we talked about, they create cards for themselves for 1 AP, multiple of them, that then can be cast for 0 AP, and they exhaust on play. That leads you to play this Brand of Annihilation for Karin for 0 AP. And this is where shit hits the fan and everything gets out of control, right? This is what makes this guy an absolute like maniac when it comes to damage output. Not only does he have ridiculous damage, but also crazy synergies all across the board in this game. It's crazy. Okay, now there is a little bit of a quote-unquote special thing that is occurring here. Let me put them both into the F tier first, just to talk about them. Let me put them into the S tier. This is Ray and Ren. These two, they belong together. You should not play one of those without the other. And there's a very simple and basic reason for it that I will explain. What Ray does is she provides morale for 1 turn to your team. That is, like, look at this ability, right? It costs 1 AP. It deals 250 damage for 1 AP. That is a lot. And for 1 turn, you grant your team 4 stacks of morale. You can see here that for each stack of morale, the damage output for every single ability this turn is increased by 20%. That is more morale and more damage increase that any other character in this game would provide to your team. And now if we look at Ren, she makes incredibly good use of this because she is extremely AP friendly and she hits multiple times per turn, which triggers this morale multiple times per turn. Look at this here, drawing snare, 0 AP, 120 damage. Look at this one right here, 150 damage, right, for 1 AP, plus 1 damage count. That means morale triggers multiple times. And it goes on and on here. She, not only is that the case, right, but if you look at Ray's epiphany upgrades, right, because like the thing that I just told you here, that Ren gets a lot of attacks out because for 0 AP, for 1 AP, and she makes use of the morale, right? That would also apply to other characters, like for example May Lin. But if you now go back to the character Ray and you look at her epiphany upgrades, then you will realize that she has some epiphany upgrades here. I don't know for which cards this actually is. Here, this one for example, specifically catering towards increasing the damage output for void cards. And guess what? Ren's abilities are all void abilities, and therefore with all of this stuff, this one here as well, for 1 turn, 50% damage to all void attacks, right? And the morale and this void card damage increase synergy is so incredible with Ray that it catapults both of these characters together to be very, very high tier. Ren is the main DPS and one of the best main DPS characters in the game, thanks to the synergy with Ray. And that makes Ray automatically incredibly important and valuable as well. And therefore I would put Ray into the A tier, right? Because great synergy with multiple characters like May Lin as well, as I mentioned, because of the morale boost. And you can get the epiphanies to boost void cards even further beyond, and that makes Ren go out of control. There we go. That's why these characters are in the ranks that they are in. Okay, now we have the character Khalip, who is like pretty much another complete disaster. She's one of those defense-based damage characters, and yeah, that just makes her not viable. But there's one thing that saves Khalip, and that makes me put her into the B tier, and that is the incredible synergy together with Haru. Because, let me pull up her kit here. Here she is. She has the, not only this one, but let's talk about this first. It's called Vulture Ejection. And it has the ability Haven, which means that whenever one of your teammates now, or yourself by the way, would use a card with the cost 2 or higher, then you play this Vulture Ejection card here for free. There's more, because here's Greatsword Aquila that has an Epiphany upgrade, multiple different ones, that you can turn this ability into an ability that costs 2, right? Again, if you play a card that costs 2, then you play Vulture Ejection for free out of your hand. That is crazy. There's one more thing here, the Epiphany upgrade for Rally also gives this ability, turns it into a 2 cost, but gives it the ability Haven. So if you, like, let's say, right, you have Rally and Vulture Ejection in your hand, and now you play the Anchor Shot, one second, the Anchor Shot with Haru, this one right here, then you would trigger both of Khalip's abilities with Vulture Ejection and Rally in the same turn. That is ridiculous, right? And even if you would not be able to like find the Anchor Shot for some weird reason, you will always find it because Haru finds it and recovers it from the graveyard herself. But even then, you can play the Greatsword Aquila to play Rally and Vulture Ejection out of your hand completely for free, right? And that synergy, that is what really elevates Khalip from a tragedy to a pretty viable and relevant character, mainly thanks to the existence of Haru. There we go. Then next up we have a true disaster, and that is this girl. I think her name is Orlea, if I'm not mistaken. Let me check that real quick. Yeah, Orlea. Now she's really weird. She does not have the answer of why would you play this character in your team. She's all about creating cards that are called creations. Those ones right here, Swifty, Softy, Toughy, right? Haha, very funny, I get it. Unfortunately, it's a tragedy. It's unfortunate. These cards, they don't do anything. What do they do? Let's take a look. 80% shield, 60% damage for one turn plus 10% damage. You know, like, what the hell is this? It's kind of the same tragedy as some of the bullets that we talked about earlier. And then if you look at the rest of this character, like, what does she do? Heal 50%, right? It's not even about that. It's truly about triggering the retain effects. Like, yeah, sure. There are some cards here in her arsenal that profit a tiny little bit from actually triggering the retain effects, like this one right here, you know. But all in all, it's a tragedy. What do you do with this character? What role does she fill? Why is she in your team? What does she do? The answer is nothing. Damage? No, or hell no. Every other character in this game that is about dealing damage deals more damage than she would. Then what do, right? You don't even apply shields. The heal that she has costs 2 AP. You don't want your healer to use up your AP for the turn. There is no way, right? Triggering retain effects has no synergy with any other character in this game other than herself. Don't play Orlea is what I'm trying to tell you, and that is the F tier. That might even be the worst character in the entire game, if I'm being honest. For me, she probably is. And with that being said, let me introduce you to Magna. It's another tragedy, but not as much of a tragedy than Orlea would be, but she also belongs into the F tier. So let's take a look at her kit and yeah, talk a little bit about why that is. There is nothing, like really. She does have something going for her here with damage output. Like her epiphany upgrades make the damage output even better. So yeah, she's like, you know, but look at her basic cards alone. She has 2 shield cards that will clog up your hand with too much trash. You don't want to have these shield cards in your hand. They are always an annoyance. And then her damage output, while the numbers here, yeah, they are not bad, but it is defense based damage. And as we already figured out, that sucks a kaki. You don't want defense based damage. You don't want to stack damage reduction, metallization. Shielding is not really truly viable in this game either. It clogs up your hand. You would need to waste AP basically to apply you these shields just to then be able to deal like some damage that is not even like something special, right? And then again, like you see this here, shield, everything is shield and counter attack. Like it doesn't work in this game. What does this synergize with? Again, like I don't, it leaves me a little bit speechless. Like you don't want to use up your AP to provide shields. Heal is better than shields. It's just a tragedy. Okay, let's just leave it at that. I'm speechless talking about these characters. My goodness. Then, excuse me, last but not least, we have the character Tresa. And that is, she's like in the same ballpark of Khalip, but a little bit better. Let me explain. So we have the synergy going here with Khalip and Haru that I explained earlier. The same kind of thing here is with Tresa and Karin, because again, Karin's ability, as I showed you earlier, gets cheaper and cheaper and cheaper the more cards you exhaust per turn. Now Tresa has an ability here that creates daggers, shadow daggers. And they will, 3 of them, or yeah, 2 without the epiphany upgrade, but yeah, it's 3. Then you play these daggers for free. They exhaust, so they make the special skill, the most important skill of Karin, cheaper. They deal damage and they apply 2 agony, which is the poison in this game. Nothing too incredibly crazy, right? But it is the perfect support for Karin actually, and everything else here is also quite AP friendly. This attack here has a very good epiphany upgrade as well, because whenever you use a skill card, you would create a shadow dagger for free, and you are 100% guaranteed to have this card in your hand if you get this epiphany upgrade. So every single time you would now use a skill with the character Mika, who you play in this team, then you would create a shadow dagger. You can play this shadow dagger for free to apply poison and make Karin's abilities cheaper. And the skill cards here, they heal, they apply plus AP, and they don't even cost anything here. Tactical analysis, 0 AP. Source of water, 0 AP. Since you gain additional AP, you can play the water barrier basically for free, which is a huge amount of heal there again, right? So I think you get the point, and I showcased how to play Karin and like how incredible this synergy here with Tresa in his team actually is. Why is she a higher rank than Khalip? Because she does not belong to this tragedy that is defense based damage output. Tresa has normal damage output and has a better mechanic than defense-based damage with her agony. And yeah, that makes her more viable and more clutch in more teams. She's AP friendly as well, right? So much more versatile and just a much better character overall. That's why I give her a higher rank than Khalip. And that's my tier list for Chaos Zero Nightmare, guys. Oh yeah, and by the way, once I'm done uploading this video, I will start my live stream on twitch.tv. Link to that is also in the description down below. Feel free to stop by, say hello, maybe discuss this tier list with me, talk about me about Chaos Zero Nightmare, just hang out with me. I will do some grind on my main account for the Zero system. So see ya there, hopefully. Let me know what you think about all of this in the comment section down below. I hope this video was fun and informative. If you like Chaos Zero Nightmare content in general, please consider leaving a follow on my channel, I would really appreciate it. But until next time, don't forget to join the Discord server, link to that in the description down below. Take care of yourselves, have a great day, peace and love.